In the park, a millionaire walked silently beside his mute daughter, ignoring the stares, until the cleaner stopped in front of her and whispered something that made the girl tremble. When the man realized what she recognized, he froze and everyone around fell completely silent. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where in the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. Daddy, can I have the blue one? The little girl's voice was sweet and clear. She pointed a chubby finger at the row of stuffed animals. Alexander Vance blinked, his heart jumped. He opened his mouth to say, "Of course, sweetheart," but no sound came out. Because the little girl was not his daughter. She was a stranger. His daughter, Chloe, stood next to him, silent as always. She just stared at her own red sneakers. Alexander's hopeful heart sank back down. It did that a lot. "Come on, Chloe," he said, his own voice soft. "Let's get your ice cream." It was Sunday. Sunday was their day. They followed the same path from their big quiet apartment on the Upper East Side to Central Park. The apartment was full of expensive things, but it felt empty. The best thing in it was Chloe's room. Even there, the quiet was heavy. In the park, Alexander bought Chloe a chocolate ice cream cone. He knelt down to her level. "Is it good?" he asked. Chloe looked at the ice cream. She took a small lick. She did not look at him. She did not nod. Her blue eyes were looking at something far away. "Your mother loved chocolate ice cream," Alexander said. He said things like this often. He did not know if it helped. He just wanted Chloe to know about Elena. He wanted to keep Elena in the room with them. Chloe's eyes moved. They looked at him for just a second. Then they went back to that faraway place. 2 years. It had been 2 years since the car accident. 2 years since Elena was gone. 2 years since Chloe had spoken a single word. The doctor said there was no physical reason for her silence. Her voice was locked inside. Alexander understood. He felt locked inside too. He was locked inside a memory. The memory of that rainy night. The sound of crashing metal, the flashing red and blue lights. He paid for the ice cream. He held Chloe's hand. Her hand was small and still in his. They walked to their usual bench near the playground. Alexander watched other children. They shouted and laughed. They called for their mothers and fathers. Each shout was like a small pinch on his skin. He looked at Chloe. She was finished with her ice cream. She had it on her fingers and a little on her nose. Alexander pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket. He gently wiped her face. "There you go," he whispered. He wanted to see her smile. He would buy her 1,000,000 toys to see her smile. He would give all his money to hear her say "Daddy" again. But she just looked at the children on the swings. Her face showed nothing. Alexander felt the deep sadness then. It was a physical feeling, like a heavy rock in his chest. He blamed himself. He always blamed himself. He had been driving the car that night. If he had taken a different street. If he had left the restaurant sooner. If. The thoughts played in his head every day. Every night. "Should we go home soon?" he asked Chloe. She did not answer. She simply slid off the bench and took his hand. That meant yes. He stood up. He looked at their bench, at the empty ice cream wrapper. This was their life. A quiet walk. A treat he hoped would work. A silent walk home. He led her back onto the path. The sun was warm. The park was full of sounds, birds, people talking, a distant saxophone player. But in their little bubble, it was quiet. Alexander watched his daughter walk. She wore her favorite outfit, a pretty red dress, one red sock, and one yellow sock. She had started doing that after the accident. Elena would have loved it. Elena loved color. He thought about the apartment waiting for them. He would make Chloe a simple dinner. He would read her a story, even though she did not react. Then he would carry her to bed. He would line up her stuffed animals in a perfect row on the blanket. He did this every night. It was one small thing he could control. He held her hand a little tighter. Her small fingers curled around his, just a little. It was something. It was a tiny sign that she was there with him. He wondered, not for the first time, if this was all their life would ever be, just the two of them, moving through a silent world. He did not know that in a few minutes their silent world would crack, and the first sound to come through would change everything. The park path was wide and sunny. Alexander let Chloe walk a few steps ahead. She always stayed close. She watched a pigeon hop near a bench. A woman was working near the playground. She wore a blue uniform with the city logo. She had big yellow rubber gloves. She held a long stick with a pointy end. She used it to pick up trash. She put a soda can into a big black bag. Her name was Maria. She was cleaning the area. She wiped her forehead with her arm. Then she looked up. She saw the little girl in the red dress. She saw the yellow and red socks. She saw the serious face and the curly blonde hair. Maria stopped moving. The stick in her hand fell to the ground. It made a soft sound on the path. Alexander heard the sound. He looked up from Chloe. He saw the cleaner woman. She was staring at his daughter. She was not blinking. A cold fear shot through Alexander. He took 2 quick steps forward. He put himself between the woman and Chloe. "Can I help you?" Alexander asked. His voice was tight. Maria did not look at him. Her eyes were only on Chloe. Her mouth was open a little. She looked like she had seen a ghost. Slowly, Maria knelt down on the path. The rough pavement pressed against her knees. She was now face to face with Chloe. "Hey," Alexander said louder now. "Step back, please." Maria did not step back. She leaned forward, very slowly. She moved her face close to Chloe's ear. Alexander's hand reached out. He was ready to pull his daughter away. Then Maria whispered. The words were so soft, Alexander almost did not hear them. They were not in English. "Duermete, mi niña." 3 words, a gentle singing whisper. Chloe's small body jolted. It was a full shake from her shoulders down to her feet. Her blue eyes opened very wide. They were not looking at something far away anymore. They were focused, sharp, and full of shock. Alexander heard the words, and suddenly, he was not in the sunny park anymore. He was in a white hospital room. The lights were too bright. Machines beeped. His little girl was sleeping in a big bed, wrapped in bandages. A nurse with kind, tired eyes was smoothing Chloe's hair. She was singing those same soft words, a lullaby, a comfort in the middle of the worst night of his life. His own breath caught in his throat. He looked from Chloe's trembling face to the kneeling woman's face. He studied her brown eyes. He saw the kindness there, and the deep, deep sadness. He remembered. "You," he breathed out. The word was barely a sound. "You were her nurse at Mercy General that night." Maria finally looked at him. Her eyes were wet. She gave a slow, small nod. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Before Alexander could speak again, Chloe moved. She turned her head. She looked right at Maria. She stared into her eyes. Then even slower, she looked up at Alexander. Her lips parted. They were dry from the ice cream. They moved silently for a second. Then a sound came out. It was a tiny, scratchy sound, like a door that had not been opened in a very long time. "Daddy?" The word was quiet. But in Alexander's world, which had been so silent for so long, it was the loudest sound he had ever heard. He fell to his knees. He did not feel the ground. He reached for Chloe. His hands were shaking. "Chloe," he whispered. "Say it again." Chloe looked at his face. She saw the tears streaming down his cheeks. Her own small face crumpled with concern. "Daddy," she said again. This time it was clearer. Alexander pulled her into his arms. He held her so tight. He cried into her hair. He could not stop. People on the nearby benches were watching. He did not care. Over Chloe's shoulder, he looked at Maria. She was still kneeling. She was crying too, but she was smiling. It was a smile of pure relief. "How?" Alexander asked her, his voice choked. "How did you do that?" Maria wiped her eyes with the back of her yellow glove. I remembered what helped her that night. I hoped it might help her today." Chloe pulled back from Alexander's hug. She looked at Maria. She pointed a small finger at her. "You sang," Chloe said. Her voice was new and unsure. "Yes, asterisk mi niña," Maria said softly. "I sang." Alexander held his daughter's face in his hands. He looked into her bright, clear eyes. She was really there. She had come back to him. He had a million questions. But in that moment, under the warm sun, with his daughter's voice in his ears, only one thing mattered. The silence was over. Alexander could not let go of Chloe's hand. He held it all the way home, as if she might float away. She walked beside him, her small steps quick to keep up. Every few seconds, she would look up at him. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "My ice cream is gone." Each time she spoke, his heart felt like it might have burst. Her voice was a little rough, but it was hers. It was real. Maria walked quietly beside them to the edge of the park. She had taken off her big yellow gloves and carried them in her hand. Alexander stopped at the sidewalk. "Please," he said to Maria. His eyes were still red. "Can we talk? Can you come with us for a moment?" Maria looked unsure. She glanced at her cleaning cart, then back at Chloe's face. She nodded. They went to a small, quiet coffee shop on a nearby corner. Alexander bought a hot chocolate for Chloe and 2 coffees. They sat at a small round table. "You gave her that hot chocolate," Chloe said, pointing at Maria's cup. "I did," Maria said softly. "You have a good memory." "It was in the white room," Chloe said, her brow furrowed, trying to remember. "With the beeping." Alexander's hand tightened around his coffee cup. "The ICU. You were her night nurse." Maria looked down into her coffee. "For 2 nights, yes. But you're cleaning the park now," Alexander said. He did not say it in a mean way. He was just confused. Maria took a slow breath. "After your wife's accident, after that night, I could not be a nurse anymore. It hurt too much. I felt too much." She looked at Chloe. "But I never forgot this little one. I took the job with the Parks Department. I asked for the Central Park route. I thought, maybe one day I would see her. I just wanted to know she was okay." "You waited 2 years?" Alexander asked. "I hoped," Maria said simply. Chloe took a sip of her hot chocolate. She had a frothy mustache on her upper lip. "I like your song." Maria's smile was warm but sad. "Thank you, *cielito*. Alexander watched them. He saw the way Chloe looked at Maria. There was no fear. There was a connection. He thought about the big, silent apartment. He thought about the nannies he had hired before. They were all qualified, all professional. None of them had made a sound. None of them had reached Chloe. An idea formed in his mind. It was a big idea. It was maybe a crazy idea. But for the first time in 2 years, he felt a spark of hope that was not followed by fear. "Maria," he said. Her name felt strange in his mouth. He knew so little about her. "What is your last name?" "Garcia," she said. "Maria Garcia." "Do you have other work? After the park?" She shook her head. "Not right now." "Where do you live?" "In the Bronx. A small room." Alexander leaned forward. "I want to offer you a job. A live-in job, as Chloe's nanny." Maria's eyes went wide. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "You brought her back," Alexander said, his voice thick. "I have tried everything, everything. You said 3 words and she came back to me. Please, help me. Help us." Maria looked at Chloe. Chloe was watching them both, her eyes serious. Maria's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Mr. Vance, Alexander, I am not a nurse anymore. I am not asking for a nurse. I am asking for you." Maria was quiet for a long moment. She looked from Alexander's pleading face to Chloe's open one. She thought of her small, lonely room. She thought of the guilt she carried every day. Here was a chance, a real chance, to make something right. "Yes," she whispered. Then she said it again, stronger. "Yes, I would like that very much." A week later, Maria moved in. She had 1 suitcase and a small bag. Alexander showed her to a bright, airy room next to Chloe's. It had its own bathroom and a window looking over the city. "This is too much," Maria said, standing in the doorway. "It's yours," Alexander said. That first evening, Alexander ordered food from a nice restaurant. They ate at the big dining table. Chloe sat in her usual chair. Maria sat across from her. "Do you like the chicken, Chloe?" Maria asked. Chloe chewed thoughtfully. She swallowed. "Yes. Do you have a little girl?" "No," Maria said. "I have brothers and sisters, far away." "Do they wear 2 socks?" Maria laughed, a warm, gentle sound. "I think they wear 2 socks, yes." Alexander listened. He ate his food. He watched his daughter talk. She asked questions. She answered questions. The silence in the apartment was gone. It was filled with a new, fragile sound, a family finding its way. After dinner, Maria gave Chloe a bath. Alexander heard the splash of water in their voices from the bathroom. He heard Chloe say, "Sing the song." And he heard Maria's soft voice begin the lullaby. He stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall. He closed his eyes. He felt a happiness so sharp it almost hurt. For the first time in 2 years, the heavy rock in his chest felt a little lighter. Everything, he thought, was going to be perfect now. The perfect days settled into a new routine. Alexander went to his office in the morning. Maria stayed with Chloe. When Alexander came home, the apartment was no longer quiet. He would hear the sound of a children's show on the television, or he would hear Maria's voice reading a story. Best of all, he would hear Chloe's voice. "Daddy's home," she would call out, running to the door. Those words never got old. One afternoon, Alexander came home early. He found Maria and Chloe at the big kitchen table. They had paper and a big box of crayons. Chloe was drawing, her small tongue poking out in concentration. "Look what we're doing," Maria said, smiling. "We are drawing happy things." Alexander walked over and kissed the top of Chloe's head. "What are you drawing, sweetie?" Chloe held up her paper. It was a picture of 3 stick figures. One was tall with brown hair, one was small with yellow scribbles for hair, one was in the middle with dark hair. They were holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "That's you," Chloe said, pointing to the tall one. She pointed to the small one. "That's me." Then she pointed to the middle figure. "That's Maria. We're home." Alexander felt a warmth spread in his chest. "It's a beautiful picture, Chloe. The best one I've ever seen." For the next week, Chloe drew every day. She drew pictures of her bedroom. She drew pictures of the park. She drew pictures of the 3 of them eating pizza. Alexander framed the first picture and put it on his desk. Then, one Tuesday, the pictures changed. Alexander was working from home in his study. Chloe came in. She held a new drawing. She put it on his desk without saying anything. "Another masterpiece?" Alexander asked, smiling. He looked down. The smile faded from his face. The paper was covered in dark, heavy lines. There was a big black shape that looked like a car. There were angry red and orange scribbles around it. There was a blue line for the sky, but it was covered with gray, swirling scribbles. Rain. It was the accident. "Chloe," Alexander said softly. His throat felt tight. Is this from your memory?" Chloe nodded. She pointed to the corner of the paper. There was a small, neat figure lying on the ground, colored in a soft pink. "Mommy," she whispered. Alexander pulled his daughter into a hug. He held her close. "It's okay to remember, baby. It's okay." When he let her go, he looked at the drawing again. His eyes caught on something else. In the middle of the road, near the black car, Chloe had drawn a single bright red flower. It was carefully drawn, with a green stem and petals colored in solid, vibrant red. He did not remember a flower. "Chloe," he said, keeping his voice calm. "What is this here?" He pointed to the red flower. Chloe looked at it. She shrugged her small shoulders. "It was there. On the road? That night?" She nodded again. "The red flower." Alexander stared at the drawing. He searched his memory of that wet, dark street. He saw the broken glass. He saw the twisted metal. He saw the flashing lights. He did not see a flower. Not at all. Later that evening, after Chloe was in bed, Alexander showed the drawing to Maria. She was washing dishes in the kitchen. He put the paper on the counter next to her. "She drew this today," he said. Maria dried her hands on a towel. She picked up the drawing. Her face went still as she looked at it. Her eyes moved over the dark scribbles, then stopped on the small pink figure. Her lips pressed together. Then her gaze landed on the red flower. Alexander saw her fingers tighten on the paper. The corner crumpled slightly. "She says there was a red flower on the road," Alexander said. "I don't remember that. Do you?" Maria's eyes flicked up to his, then back down to the paper. She took a slow breath. "It was a very chaotic night. My memory is not so good." She put the drawing down gently onto the counter. "It is probably just her imagination, a little bit of color in a bad memory." She picked up a plate and began to dry it again, very carefully. She was not looking at him. "Probably," Alexander said. But he kept looking at the red flower on the paper. It was so bright, so specific. It did not look like imagination. It looked like a memory. And Maria's reaction? It did not seem like someone trying to remember. It seemed like someone trying to forget. The red flower stayed in Alexander's mind. He watched Maria more closely after that. He told himself he was being silly. She was so good with Chloe. The apartment felt alive. But then he saw the first strange thing. It was a Thursday evening. They were all in the living room. Maria was helping Chloe with a puzzle on the floor. Alexander was reading a book. He had the television on for background noise. The local news was playing. A reporter appeared on the screen. She stood on a city street at night. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Police seek hit-and-run driver in Queens." The reporter's voice was serious. The vehicle, described as a large black SUV, fled the scene after striking a pedestrian on Tuesday night. Alexander saw Maria's head snap up. She stared at the television. Her hands, which were holding a puzzle piece, froze. Her face lost all its color. She looked scared. "Maria?" Alexander said. She did not hear him. Her eyes were locked on the screen. "Maria?" he said again, louder. She blinked. She looked at him quickly, then back down at the puzzle. "Yes? Sorry. Are you okay? You looked pale." "I am fine," she said, but her voice was tight. She picked up the puzzle piece again. Her hand was shaking. "Just tired." The news story changed to the weather. Maria's shoulders relaxed a little. She did not look at the television again. A few days later, it happened again. They were having breakfast. A morning news show was on. The anchor mentioned a hit-and-run case from 2 years prior that was going to trial. Maria dropped her spoon. It clattered loudly on her plate. Chloe jumped at the sound. Sorry, Maria said quickly, picking up the spoon. She got up from the table. "I will get a clean one." She went to the kitchen. Alexander heard the water run for a long time. He did not say anything, but a small, cold knot began to form in his stomach. The next Saturday, Maria took Chloe to the library for story time. Alexander stayed home. He decided to fix the loose handle on Maria's bedroom door. It was a simple thing, a thank you for all she was doing. He got his small toolbox. He opened her door. Her room was always very neat. The bed was made. A few personal things were on the dresser. A hairbrush, a photo of a family he did not know, a small wooden cross. He worked on the door handle. It was an easy fix, just tightening a screw. When he was done, he saw that the screw had rolled under her bed. He got down on his knees to look for it. He saw the screw. He also saw a small dusty box pushed far against the wall. It was an old shoebox. Something was sticking out from under the lid. It was a laminated card attached to a blue clip. Alexander reached for the screw. His hand hesitated. Then he reached for the box. He told himself he should not do this. But the red flower and the scared look on Maria's face pushed him. He pulled the box out. He lifted the lid. On top of some old papers was a hospital identification badge. It had a photo of Maria. She looked younger. She was smiling in the photo. The badge had the name of the hospital, Mercy General. Her title said Registered Nurse, and her name, it said Maria Flores. Alexander stared at the badge. He turned it over in his hands. There was no mistake. The face was Maria's face. But the name was wrong. Maria Garcia. Maria Flores. He heard the front door open. He heard Chloe's happy voice call out, "Daddy, we're home." Quickly, Alexander put the badge back in the box. He pushed the box under the bed. He stood up, the forgotten screw in his hand. His heart was pounding. He walked out of her room, closing the door behind him. Maria was helping Chloe hang up her coat. "Did you fix the door?" Maria asked with a friendly smile. "Yes," Alexander said. His own voice sounded strange to him. "All fixed." He looked at her kind, open face, the face of the woman who had given him his daughter back. And he held in his hand a small, cold piece of metal that told him she had lied about her name. The name Maria Flores would not leave Alexander's head. It played on a loop, along with the image of the red flower and Maria's scared face watching the news. He tried to push it away. She was so good with Chloe, that was what mattered. But on Monday morning, after Maria took Chloe to a music class, he could not sit still. He went to his home office. He unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk. He took out a thin beige folder, the police report from the night of the accident. He had read it 100 times. He knew every word. It stated the facts. Single car accident, driver, Alexander, lost control on the wet road. Passenger, Elena, pronounced dead at the scene. Child, Chloe, transported to Mercy General with minor injuries. There was no mention of another vehicle, No mention of a hit and run, no mention of witnesses. He closed the folder. He picked up his phone. He called Mercy General Hospital. "I need to speak with a doctor who was working in the emergency room 2 years ago," he said to the operator. "The night of November 3rd, my daughter was brought in. Her name is Chloe Vance." After being transferred a few times, he was connected to a Dr. Evans. The doctor's voice was old and tired, but he remembered. "Chloe Vance," Dr. Evans said slowly. "Yes, the little girl who wouldn't make a sound. I remember. She had a bad cut on her forehead, but she was lucky. What can I do for you, Mr. Vance?" Alexander's mouth was dry. "I'm trying to understand more about that night, for my own peace. Were there any other details? Anything that might not have been in the official report?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Alexander could hear papers rustling. "I pulled a chart," Dr. Evans said finally. "My notes from intake. The paramedics said something. It's here in my writing. They said a witness at the scene flagged them down. A woman. She was the one who pointed them to your car. She was holding the little girl." Alexander's grip on the phone tightened. "A woman? What did she look like?" "The notes just say female witness, Hispanic, in work uniform. The paramedics said she was very upset. She handed your daughter over, said a few words to calm her, and then she left. She was gone before the police arrived." A cold feeling spread through Alexander's chest. "A work uniform? What kind?" "It doesn't say. Could be anything. Janitor, cleaner, fast food. Why? Is this important?" "And there was no other car? The police report says it was just me, that I lost control." Another pause. Dr. Evans cleared his throat. "My notes mention the paramedics observed fresh side impact damage to your vehicle, inconsistent with a single car crash into a barrier. They reported that to the police officer at the hospital." Alexander felt the room tilt. "Side impact damage?" "Yes, as if another vehicle struck the passenger side. But Mr. Vance, that is not in my medical notes. That is what I heard the paramedics saying. The official report is a police matter." Alexander thanked the doctor and hung up. He sat very still in his quiet office. A woman in a work uniform, a woman who held Chloe, a woman who left. Maria had been a nurse at the hospital. But what if she had also been there, at the scene, in a different uniform, a cleaner's uniform? The badge said Flores. She called herself Garcia. She panicked at news stories about hit and runs. Chloe drew a red flower no one else remembered. Alexander stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The pieces, jagged and sharp, began to click together in a picture he did not want to see. He had believed their story was a sad, simple one. A terrible accident, a guilty father, a silent child. Now he saw it was a puzzle with missing pieces. And the person who had just started filling their home with light might have been hiding those pieces all along. He needed to know what Maria knew. He needed to know what really happened on that rainy road. And he needed to know why she had lied to him. Alexander waited until Chloe was asleep. He stood in the hallway outside her room for a long time, listening to her quiet breathing. Then he walked to the living room. Maria was on the sofa, folding a small pile of Chloe's clothes. "Maria," he said. His voice sounded flat. "Can we talk?" She looked up, smiling. Then she saw his face. The smile faded. "Of course. Is everything okay?" "No," he said. He walked to the armchair across from her and sat down. He placed the old hospital badge on the coffee table between them. He did it slowly. The plastic made a soft tap on the wood. Maria's eyes went to the badge. She froze. The small pink sock she was holding fell from her hands into her lap. "I found this," Alexander said. "When I fixed your door. It was under your bed." Maria did not speak. She just stared at the badge with her picture and the wrong name. "Your name is Maria Flores," Alexander said. "You told me it was Garcia. Why?" Maria wrapped her arms around herself. She looked very small on the big sofa. It is a name I used sometimes. Before." "Before what?" Alexander leaned forward. "And that's not the only thing. I spoke to a doctor today, Dr. Evans, from the hospital." Maria's breath hitched, a small, scared sound. "He told me a woman in a work uniform was at the accident. She was holding Chloe. She gave Chloe to the paramedics. Then she ran away before the police came." Alexander's voice began to shake. "Was that you, Maria? Were you there *before* the ambulance?" Tears filled Maria's eyes. They spilled over and ran down her cheeks. She nodded, a tiny, broken movement. Why? The word burst out of Alexander. Why were you there? Why did you run? What are you hiding? Maria covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. For a minute, there was only the sound of her crying. Finally, she lowered her hands. She looked at him, her eyes full of terror and shame. I had 2 jobs that night. I was a nurse at the hospital. My shift started at 11. But first, I had my cleaning job at an office building on that street. I was finishing my work. I was taking the trash out to the alley. I heard the crash. She stopped, swallowing hard. I saw it happen. A big black SUV. It came from the side street. It was going very fast. It hit your car on the passenger side. It did not stop. It kept going. Your car spun and hit the pole. Alexander felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Another car. A hit and run. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just the rain. I ran over, Maria whispered. The driver's door was open. You were slumped over the wheel. The woman in the passenger seat, Elena, she was not moving. And then I heard a sound, a little cry, from the back seat. She was sobbing now, the words coming out in gasps. I opened the back door. Chloe was in her car seat. She was awake. She was bleeding from a cut on her head. She was so scared. I unbuckled her. I took her out. I held her close. I did not know what else to do. I sang to her, the same song, to keep her calm. The lullaby, Alexander said softly. Maria nodded. I heard the sirens. The paramedics were coming. I gave Chloe to the first medic. I pointed to your car, and then I ran. Why? Alexander asked again, but the anger was draining away, replaced by a cold dread. Because I was scared, Maria cried. I did not have my papers, Alexander. I was not a legal citizen. I was just a cleaner. I saw the police lights. I was so afraid they would ask me questions and then they would send me away. I ran back to my cleaning closet. I hid. Later, I went to my nurse job at the hospital. And your daughter, she was brought into my emergency room. I saw her again. I knew it was her, but I was too ashamed. I was too scared to say I was the one who ran. So I just helped as her nurse, and I have carried that secret every single day. Alexander stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out at the dark city, but he did not see it. He saw a rainy street. He saw a black SUV speeding away. He saw a woman running from the lights. All this time, he said, his back to her. I blame myself. I thought it was all my fault. And you knew it was another car. You knew I didn't just lose control. I wanted to tell you, Maria wept. When I saw you in the park, I wanted to tell you everything. But I saw how you looked at Chloe. I saw your pain. I was a coward. I took the job because I wanted to make it right. I wanted to help her, to help you. I am so sorry. From the hallway, a small voice spoke. Maria saved me. Alexander and Maria turned. Chloe stood there in her pajamas. Her hair was messy from sleep. She must have heard everything. She walked into the room. She did not go to Alexander. She went straight to Maria on the sofa. She climbed up and put her arms around Maria's neck. She held me, Chloe said, her voice clear. She sang, "She saved me." Alexander looked at his daughter, holding the woman who had just shattered his understanding of the worst night of his life. The truth was a terrible, painful thing, but in his daughter's eyes, it was also very simple. For a long moment, Alexander did not speak. He looked at his daughter, who was holding on to Maria as if she were a life raft. He looked at Maria, whose face was streaked with tears, her body trembling with fear and guilt. He felt two things at once, a hot, sharp anger and a cold, heavy sadness. "You should go to your room, Chloe," Alexander said. His voice was quiet but firm. Chloe shook her head, her face buried in Maria's shoulder. "No, Chloe, now." Maria gently pried Chloe's arms from her neck. She looked into the little girl's eyes. "Go on. Asterisk, cielito asterisk. It is okay." Chloe slid off the sofa. She looked from Maria to her father. Her own eyes were full of tears. She walked slowly out of the room. She stopped in the hallway just out of sight, but they both knew she was listening. Alexander waited until he heard her stop. He turned back to Maria. The anger rose up first. "You lied to me," he said. The words felt like stones in his mouth. "Every single day, you lived in my home. You cared for my daughter, and you were lying." "I was afraid," Maria whispered. I trusted you. Alexander's voice rose. He saw Maria flinch, but he couldn't stop. I blame myself for 2 years. I thought I killed my wife. Do you understand that? Every day I looked in the mirror and saw the person who ended Elena's life, and you knew it wasn't true. I know, Maria cried. I am so sorry. I wanted to tell you. But you didn't. You let me drown in that guilt. Why? Because you were scared for yourself? Yes, Maria said, the word a desperate gasp. I was scared for myself. It is a selfish reason, a terrible reason, but it is the truth. I am not a brave person, Alexander. I am a person who ran away. Her honesty disarmed him. The anger began to mix with the crushing sadness. He sat down heavily in the armchair. He put his head in his hands. The red flower, he said, his voice muffled. In Chloe's drawing. What was it? Maria took a shaky breath. It was a hair clip, a red flower hair clip. It fell from Elena's hair when I opened the car door. It was on the road next to the car. Chloe must have seen it. She must have remembered that small bright thing in all the dark. Alexander remembered then. Elena had a favorite clip, a red silk flower. She wore it all the time. He had given it to her. He squeezed his eyes shut, a new wave of pain washing over him. You saw her, he said softly. I did, Maria whispered. I am so sorry I did not stay. I am so sorry I did not tell the police about the other car. Maybe they could have found it. The room was silent. The weight of the truth sat between them. It was ugly and complicated. From the hallway, a small voice spoke again. Please don't be mad. Chloe walked back into the room. She went to Alexander's chair. She put her small hand on his knee. She saved me, Daddy. She is good. Alexander looked at his daughter's pleading face. He saw no confusion there. She had heard a hard story, a story about fear and running away. But in her child's mind, she had already taken the important pieces. Maria helped. Maria sang. Maria was kind. He looked at Maria. He saw the shame. He also saw the woman who had knelt in the park and brought his daughter's voice back. He saw the woman who made Chloe laugh. He saw the woman who had tried in her own broken way to make amends. The anger was still there, but it was fading. It was being replaced by an exhausting understanding. The world was not a simple place where people were only good or only bad. It was a place where good people sometimes did cowardly things, where a person who ran away could also be a person who saved a little girl. He did not know if he could forgive her, not yet, but he knew he could not send her away. Not while Chloe was looking at him like that. We will talk more tomorrow, Alexander said, his voice tired. You should go to bed, Maria. Maria stood up. She wiped her face. She looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She just nodded and walked quietly to her room. Alexander picked Chloe up. He held her close. She wrapped her arms and legs around him, clinging tightly. It's a lot, isn't it, baby? He whispered into her hair. Chloe nodded against his shoulder. Is Maria leaving? No, Alexander said, and as he said it, he knew it was the right choice. Maria is not leaving, but things will be different for a while. He carried her back to bed. He tucked her in. He did not line up the stuffed animals perfectly tonight. He just placed her favorite bunny next to her cheek. The other car, Chloe said sleepily. The black car. That's what hurt Mommy. Yes, Alexander said, his heart breaking all over again in a new way. It wasn't you, she whispered. Those 3 words, from her, finally landed. They settled deep inside him, starting to lift a weight he had carried for 2 long years. No, he said, his own tears coming now. It wasn't me. The next morning, the apartment was very quiet. It was not the old, heavy quiet. It was a new quiet, full of things that had been said. Alexander came out of his room. Maria was already in the kitchen. She was making pancakes. She did not look at him. Good morning, Alexander said. Maria jumped a little. She turned. Her eyes were puffy. Good morning. Pancakes will be ready soon. Thank you, he said. He sat at the kitchen table. We need to talk, after Chloe goes to preschool. Maria nodded, her back to him. Okay. When Chloe came out, she went straight to Maria and hugged her legs. Good morning, she said into Maria's apron. Maria knelt down and hugged her back tightly. Good morning, my girl. They ate breakfast. Chloe chattered about a blue bird she saw from her window. Alexander and Maria listened. They smiled at her, but they did not talk to each other. After Alexander dropped Chloe off at school, he came back to the apartment. Maria was washing the breakfast dishes. She had her back to the room. "Maria," he said. She turned off the water. She dried her hands. She came and sat at the table across from him. She looked down at her hands. "I am still hurt," Alexander began, "and I am still angry. But Chloe is right. You did save her, and you have been good to her, to us." Maria nodded, still looking down. "But we have to fix this now," he said. "We have to tell the police what you saw, about the other car." Her head snapped up. Fear flashed in her eyes. "I will be with you," Alexander said. "I will hire a lawyer for you, for the immigration questions. But we have to do this, for Elena." Maria took a deep breath. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she looked more calm. "You are right. I am ready." Alexander called the police station. He explained he had new witness information about a 2-year-old hit-and-run case. They made an appointment for that afternoon. While they waited, Alexander did something he had not done in a long time. He went into Elena's art studio. He opened the door. The room was just as she left it. Canvases were covered with cloth. Tubes of paint were on a table. It smelled like dust and old linseed oil. Maria stood in the doorway. "It is like a museum," she said softly. "It was too painful to touch anything," Alexander said. He walked to a shelf. He picked up a photo album. He brought it to the living room. He sat on the sofa. After a moment, Maria sat on the other end. He opened the album. The first picture was of Elena on a beach. She was laughing, her dark hair blowing in the wind. "She was so full of life," Alexander said. "She was beautiful," Maria said. Chloe came home from school. She saw the open album on the sofa. She climbed up between them. "Is that Mommy?" Chloe asked, pointing to the beach picture. "Yes," Alexander said. "That was in California, before you were born." "Tell me," Chloe said. So, for the first time, they told stories together. Alexander told a story about Elena trying to cook a turkey and setting off the smoke alarm. Maria asked questions. "What was her favorite color?" "Purple," Alexander said. Chloe added, "Like my dress." It was sad. Alexander cried a little, but it was also good. It did not feel like a secret pain anymore. It felt like a memory they could finally share. That afternoon, a detective came to the apartment. He was a tall man named Detective Miller. He listened as Maria told her story. She told him about the black SUV. She described the sound of the crash. She told him about running to the car. She told him about the red flower hair clip on the ground. Alexander showed him Chloe's drawing. He showed him the official police report that had no mention of another car. Detective Miller took many notes. "This is significant new information, Mr. Vance. We will reopen the case. We will look for traffic camera footage from that area. It was a long time ago, but we will try." After the detective left, the three of them stood in the entryway. The air felt clearer. "It is done," Maria said. She looked exhausted but also lighter. "Yes," Alexander said. "It is done." Chloe reached out and took both of their hands. She did not say anything. She just held on. They stood there, a broken circle, but a circle all the same, finally facing the same direction. The first Saturday after the police visit felt different. Alexander woke up and did not think about buying a new toy. He thought about the day ahead. He made pancakes himself. Maria came into the kitchen as he was flipping one. "You are cooking," she said, surprised. "I am trying," he said. The pancake was a little dark on one side. He put it on a plate. For Chloe. When Chloe came to the table, she saw the lopsided pancake. She grinned. "It looks funny, Daddy." "It tastes good," Alexander said. "I hope." She took a big bite. Yum! After breakfast, Alexander did not suggest their usual walk to the toy store. Instead, he said, "Should we go to the park?" "Yes," Chloe said. She looked at Maria. "You come too." Maria looked at Alexander, unsure. "Please," Alexander said. "We should all go." They walked to Central Park, but not to their old spot near the playground. Alexander led them to a different entrance, closer to a quiet pond with willow trees. "This is new," Chloe said, looking around. "It's a new place," Alexander agreed, "for new walks." They found a bench. Chloe ran to look at the ducks. Alexander and Maria sat down. The silence between them was not as heavy as before. "The lawyer called yesterday," Alexander said. "She said your case for a visa looks good, because you are helping the police, and because you are Chloe's caregiver." Maria nodded. "That is good news. Thank you for doing that." "It's the right thing," he said. He paused. "I am trying not to be so angry. I am trying not to be so afraid," Maria said softly. Chloe came back, holding 2 small yellow flowers. She gave one to Alexander and one to Maria. "For you," she said. "Thank you, cielito, Maria said, putting the flower in her hair. Alexander tucked his into his shirt pocket. "Tell me about Mommy in this park," Chloe said, climbing onto the bench between them. Alexander thought. "She loved the Shakespeare Garden. Over there." She said it was like a secret place in the middle of the city. She would sketch the flowers. "Can we go?" Chloe asked. Alexander looked at Maria. "Would you like to see it?" "Yes," Maria said. "I would." They walked to the garden. It was full of late summer blooms. Chloe pointed to a purple plant. "Is that Mommy's favorite?" "It is," Alexander said. Maria bent down to look at the name on a small sign. "Lavender," she read. "It smells nice." They spent an hour there. Chloe asked questions. Alexander told stories. Maria listened. Sometimes she asked a question too. "Did she like to paint here?" "All the time," Alexander said. On the walk home, Chloe walked in the middle. She held Alexander's hand with her right hand. She held Maria's hand with her left hand. Alexander did not pull away. Maria held on gently. That evening, Maria was in the kitchen making dinner. Alexander was helping Chloe with a puzzle in the living room. The television was off. "Maria," Alexander called out. "Can you come here for a second?" Maria came in, wiping her hands on a towel. "What is it?" Alexander pointed to the puzzle. It was a picture of a farm. "We cannot find the last piece of the sky. We have looked everywhere." Maria smiled. She walked over to the bookshelf. She reached behind a big book. She pulled out the missing blue puzzle piece. "It was hiding here. I saw it this morning when I was dusting." She handed the piece to Chloe. Chloe snapped it into place. The puzzle was complete. "Thank you," Alexander said. He meant for more than the puzzle piece. Life was not perfect. Alexander still woke up some nights from bad dreams. Maria sometimes got a faraway, sad look in her eyes. Chloe still had questions about her mother that were hard to answer, but it was real. Alexander talked more and bought less. Maria was not just the nanny. She was the person who knew the whole story, the good and the terrible. And Chloe was not silent. Her voice, her laughter, her questions, they filled the spaces that used to be so empty. They were a family, pieced together from broken parts. Not the family they planned to be, but a family that was healing together, one quiet word and one shared walk at a time.